Hello friends, and we continue to study adjective clauses, and in this course we're going to study how we can use whose in adjective clauses, and whose shows the possession. And if you remember, for people we use who, that, and for objects which, that, depending on the subject or object positions. And if they're in object positions, and we cannot use any. But to show the possession in adjective clauses, we use whose. Look at this sentence. The man called the police. This is one independent sentence. And his car was stolen. His, the possession shows the possession. And when I want to combine these two sentences to show the possession, I use whose car. That means the man whose car was stolen called the police. I know a boy, and his father is a salesperson. And when I want to combine again these two sentences, instead of his father, I use whose father. So the adjective clause sentence will be like this: I know a boy. Now I want to define or modify this boy. So what kind of boy? Whose father is a salesperson. Yani babası satış memuru olan, satış personeli olan çocuğu biliyorum. The people were friendly. We bought their house. Here, their is the possession. And instead of their, I want to use whose. So when I want to combine these two sentences in adjective clause, and I'll say the people whose house we bought. What kind of people? The people whose house. What happened to the house? We bought. Were friendly. People, plural and plural. But be careful, there's a note in here, and the whose and the whose. The pronunciation of these are the same, but the meaning, of course, is different. Who's your teacher? That means who is your teacher? But if you say whose teacher, öğretmeni anlamında oluyor. Burada ise öğretmenin kim? That means. Now we have an exercise in here, and whose in adjective clauses, and you see sentences in this column and sentences in this column. Now using whose, make adjective clauses combining these two sentences. And number one is done. There is the man, his car was stolen. So possession. So instead of his, I use whose. There is the man whose car was stolen. Arabası çalınan adam işte bu derken. Now pause the video and then make sentences, adjective clause sentences using whose. I've written down a couple of them, and then I'll tell them orally, but just check your answers. 2. There is the woman whose cat died. Kedisi ölen. Over there is the man whose daughter is in my English class. Over there is the woman whose husband you met yesterday. Over there is the woman whose husband you met yesterday. There is the professor whose course I'm taking. That is the man whose daughter is an astronaut. That is the girl whose camera I borrowed. There is the boy whose mother is a famous musician. They are the people whose house we visited last month. Whose house we visited. Evlerini geçen ay ziyaret ettiğimiz. There is the couple whose apartment was burglarized. Yani hırsızlar tarafından soyulmuş. Here in this exercise you see sentences, one sentence, another sentence. Again, I'm going to combine these two sentences using adjective, using whose. There's an example in here. The people were very kind. I stayed at their house. The people whose house you stayed or I stayed at were very kind. And look at the sentences and then combine them using whose. But pause the video first, please. Number one, the man whose car stolen. This is the adjective clause and called the police. The woman whose cat died. Whose cat died is the adjective clause. The woman was sad. Kedisi ölen kadın üzgün idi. The house and correction, bir düzeltme var. The man whose daughter is in my English class is friendly. Whose daughter is in my English class. Adjective clause, man is friendly. The professor whose course I am taking gives hard tests. Singular, singular. The man whose daughter is an astronaut, whose daughter is an astronaut, adjective clause, is very proud. The girl whose camera I borrowed is a good friend of mine. The people whose house I visited were very nice. People whose house I visited, this is the adjective clause. I have a friend whose brother is a police officer. I have a neighbor whose dog barks all day long. I like the people whose house we went to. Careful, we went to their house. So instead of their, we use whose. I thank the woman whose dictionary I borrowed. I thank the woman whose dictionary I borrowed. The woman whose purse was stolen shouted, "Stop thief!" The man whose picture is in the newspaper is famous. I know a girl whose family never eats dinner together. Yani ailesinin akşam yemeğini beraber yemediği bir kız biliyorum. Now we have an exercise. It's the review of the adjective clauses. And it says, fill in the blanks using who, whom, which, that, whose, or, and, zero. And sometimes maybe more than one option is preferred. Number one and number two are done. The people who or that, either, both are correct, moved into town are Korean. Number two, the lamp, which, or that, or nothing I bought. Downtown is beautiful but quite expensive. Now I'm going to move this a little bit up so that you can see all the exercises. Now, maybe here is better. Okay. Now pause the video and then complete the sentences using who, which, whom, that, whose, or zero. Now, I ask you to look at the exercise once again. Is number 4. Yeah, the blank should be here. And there was a mistake and a printing mistake. Just I realized that. So please pause the video and then complete the sentences. Number 3. Everyone that or who came to the audition got a part in the play. Audition is a kind of test in theater. 4. Miss Laura Rice is the teacher whose class I enjoy most. Flowers that or which grow in tropical climates usually have vibrant colors. The man who or whom or that or nothing I found in the doorway had collapsed from exhaustion. Very tired, being very tired, that means. I like the people with whom I work. Because here I need to use whom. Why? Because I use a preposition before. I have a friend whose father is a famous artist. That means his father is a famous artist. The camera that or which or nothing I bought has a zoom lens. The students that or who have part-time jobs have to budget their time very carefully. The person to whom you should send your application is here. This is the adjective clause. The person is the director of admission. Flying squirrels that or which live in tropical rainforests stay in the trees their entire lives without touching the ground. The people whose window I broke got really angry. People got really angry and I broke their windows. Monkeys will eat eggs, grass, fruit, birds, snakes, insects, nuts, flowers, leaves, and frogs. This is just one sentence. This is the trick. Bu bir yanıltmacaydı. Should be nothing in here. Burada herhangi bir adjective. It means in this sentence there is no adjective clause. Monkeys will eat almost anything that or which or nothing they can find. They means monkeys. A magazine that or which I read at the doctor's office. A magazine that, which, or nothing. I forgot to put this one because magazine here is in object position. I read at the doctor's office had an article you ought to read. It is about the importance of exercise in dealing with stress. Why do you think I should read an article that or which deals with exercise and stress? If you stop and think for a minute, you can answer that question yourself. You're under a lot of stress and you don't get any exercise. The stress that or which or nothing I have, because I have this stress at work, doesn't bother me. It is just a normal part of my job, and I don't have time to exercise. Well, you should make time. Anyone whose job is as stressful as yours, anyone, should make physical exercise part of their daily routine. Now, in this exercise, you see sentences in red and sentences in black. We need to match the sentences and then make sentences also, like adjective clauses. And number one is done. James chose the color of paint for his bedroom walls. The color of paint was an unusual blue. And when I want to combine these two sentences, I'll have this sentence like this. The color of paint James chose for his bedroom walls was an unusual blue. Now read the sentences and then match them. Yani bunları eşleştireceksiniz. Ve adjective clause yapıyoruz. But first, pause the video. Number 2, the man whose son was in an accident called an ambulance. My back hurts today. The mattress that or which or nothing I slept on in a hotel last night was too soft. 4. A volcano that or which erupted in Indonesia recently killed 6 people and damaged large areas of rice, coconut, and clove crops. Clove is a kind of spice, and we use it in most either tea or some other, the cookies. 5. Doctors and nurses whose specialty is heart surgery, uzmanlık alanı kalp ameliyatı olan, are some of the best trained medical personnel in the world. Early human beings that or who lived in the jungles of South Asia hunted animals for food, including chickens. Originally, chickens were wild birds. At some point in time, humans learned how to domesticate them and raise them for food. In prehistoric times, there was a dinosaur whose mouth was big enough to swallow a whole cow in one gulp. Yutma, yutuş. Every glass of water, which or that or nothing you drink, has molecules. Now, in this exercise, it says underline the adjective clauses in the following passages and circle the noun that each adjective clause modifies. And I just underline the noun in the first sentence, and then you see the red part is the adjective clause, and this modifies this. Parents are people who provide love, care, and education for children. And read the sentences and find out the adjective clauses and the noun that adjective clause modifies. But pause the video, please, first. Okay. Parents may be defined as the principal people who raise a child. People is the noun, and who raise a child is the adjective clause, and this modifies this. These people may or may not have physically produced the child, many children are brought up by relatives or other caring adults when their biological parents, through death, disability, or uncontrollable circumstances, are not present to care for them. The role of any parents, biological or not, is to take care of their children's emotional, physical, and social needs. Children need love and affection to grow strong emotionally. It is important for all children to have at least one adult with whom they can form a loving and trusting relationship. With whom, this is adjective clause, and this modifies adult. A strong bond with adults is essential from birth through adolescence. For example, babies who are not picked up frequently and held lovingly, this is the adjective clause, and this modifies babies, may have slow physical and mental growth, even though they receive adequate food and exercise. Youngsters who are raised in an institution, adjective clause, and this modifies youngsters, without bonding with an older person who functions as a parent, adjective clause, and this modifies person, often have difficulty forming trusting relationships when they are adults. Here we have two more paragraphs. Again, pause the video and then find the adjectives clauses and then the nouns the adjective clauses modify. In addition to love, children need physical care. Babies are completely dependent upon adults for food, shelter, and safety. Children who are denied such basics in their early lives, this is the adjective clause, and this modifies children, may suffer chronic health problems and feelings of insecurity throughout their lifetimes. One of the greatest responsibilities that parents have, adjective clause, and this modifies this one, is to provide for the physical well-being of their children. Children's education is also the responsibility of the parents. Girls and boys must learn to speak, dress themselves, eat properly, and get along with others. They must learn not to touch fire, to look carefully before they cross the street, and not to use violence to solve problems. The lessons that parents teach, adjective clause, this modifies lessons, their children are numerous. As children get older and enter school, teachers join parents in providing the education that young people need, adjective clause, this modifies education, in order to become independent, productive members of society. Now, everyday English. Tina and Helen are talking. Could you please take the documents to the copy office and get 2 sets, please? That was 2 sets of copy. Helen, I've already done. Now, everyday English. Tina and Helen are talking. Could you please take the documents to the copy office and get 2 sets, please? That means get 2 sets of copy. I've already done that. They are on your desk. That means documents, the copies of documents. Oh, well done. In that case, I would like you to book the flights. Here, to book means to reserve the flights and hotel for my San Francisco trip next week. I did that yesterday. I also got you a great deal. Great deal means bargain on a rental car while you're there. That means while you're in San Francisco. I'm now working on the preparations for your meetings when you get back. When you get back from San Francisco. That's fantastic. You really are an eager beaver. Eager beaver is a person who is excited or enthusiastic to begin something or to do something. Or eager beaver is a person who does something relentlessly or without stopping. Aşırı böyle ilgili anlamında. Just doing my job. That means I'm just doing my job. Ben sadece işimi yapıyorum. Evet, herkes kendine düşen yapsa sanırım her şey çok güzel olur gibi. Şimdi bu dersi burada bitiriyoruz. Konumuz bitmiyor. Sanırım bir sonraki derste bu konuyu bitirmiş olacağız. So see you next time.